A new NFL season is around the corner, and we all know that this means it's time to make our predictions. In today's video, we will be going through every team in the NFL and predicting their end of season record. Can't wait to be wrong about half of these after the season is over. We won't go super in depth on every team in this video because I already did that in my ranking NFL teams video. But I have changed a lot of opinions since that video, and we can finally talk about who's going to win each respective division and who's going to finish closer to the bottom. Let's go through this division by division, starting with the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills are in a weird spot this year. The team is very similar to what it was last year, but it really looks like they got worse. The biggest reason for this is, of course, losing Stephon Diggs, who they didn't really replace with anyone of his caliber. The Bills might have trouble in the playoffs for another year, but they should be due for a very good regular season as long as the most overrated player in the NFL stays healthy. I have the Bills finishing at 10-7 in a competitive AFC East. Just to call it how it is, the New England Patriots are still in a rebuild. Even if Drake May is the long-term answer for them, the team just isn't ready to compete yet. Once again, this division is very solid, and for the second year in a row, this Patriots team is clearly the worst team. I have them finishing at 5-12. The Miami Dolphins look like a great team on paper, as they have been for the past few years. Their success at the end of the day comes down to if Tua can win them games against competitive teams. The Dolphins are still an explosive team, and they still of course have Tyreek Hill, who had his annual viral offseason moment.
Would you like to race him when he gets home?
I will beat No Allows.
You think so?
I will beat No Allows.
Like by a lot?
No, I won't beat him by a lot, but I will beat No Allows.
But nonetheless, overall, I think this team will finish 9-8 and will be a borderline playoff team. Now let's talk about a team that people have mixed feelings about. It seems as though a lot of people have differing opinions about the Jets. I think that they have the talent to win, but it's about if they can put it all together. First of all, we'll have to see if Aaron Rodgers is still as good of a player as he was before the injury. This team could really shock some people by being better than we thought, or potentially a lot worse than we thought. But I have belief in this team, even if it might take a few weeks to put it all together. I have the Jets finishing at 9-8, tying them with the Dolphins. I think that the Jets will end up having the tiebreaker over the Dolphins, and they will finish as the 2 seed in the division. The Dolphins seem like they have a good chance at making the playoffs, but we'll have to see if the talented AFC has any room for them. But just like that, 3 minutes into this video, and we're already done with the AFC East. Let's move on to the AFC West. Another very interesting division. Let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs, because I'm sure everyone has a similar opinion on this team. There isn't really much to be said about the Chiefs, and I think they'll finish as the 1 seed in the division pretty comfortably. I have the Chiefs finishing 12-5. That's really all I have to say about them, so let's move on to the Denver Broncos, the second team so far in this video that is in a rebuild. Unlike the Patriots though, I think the Broncos have better talent surrounding their rookie quarterback, but even in a relatively weak division, I don't see the Broncos making a playoff push unless Bo Nix is this year's version of CJ Stroud. I have the Broncos finishing 7-10. The Las Vegas Raiders have some really good players on both sides of the ball, but it's a shame for me to say that they won't be competitive this year, mostly because of the quarterback position. Gardner Minshew isn't horrible, but they could have done a lot better. This team might still be fun to watch this year, but I only have them finishing 7-10, tying them with the Denver Broncos. Unfortunately, we have to move on to another team that seems like they're wasting talent, but for the exact opposite reason. The Chargers have a great quarterback and have finally fixed their coaching staff, but just as they made these changes, their best players all left. Keenan Allen is gone. Mike Williams is gone. Austin Eckler is also gone. The Chargers fixed their biggest problem, but replaced it with another problem: a lack of skill position players. I think this team can still perform well, but they won't be able to close out games consistently. I have the Chargers finishing 8-9, just missing out for a chance at a playoff spot. But that's all for the AFC West. Once again, we're breezing through this pretty quickly. We don't have too much time to go in depth on every single team, every single division. But if you disagree on anything I say in this video, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll respond to all the comments down there. But nonetheless, let's move on to the AFC South, which honestly is no longer the worst division in the NFL, like I thought it was going into last year. Let's move on to the AFC South, which might be the worst division in the NFL. But it is a super interesting one. Let's start with the Jaguars. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence can finally take a leap, but I don't know how likely that is right now. We've been saying this guy would take this jump since after his rookie year, but it might just not happen at this point. However, I still have the Jags finishing 9-8, giving themselves a shot at a wildcard spot because the team is still talented overall. The Houston Texans are the biggest reason why the Jaguars won't win the AFC South. This young team got better over the offseason, and they're due for a big season. I have the Texans finishing 11-6, winning the division. The Tennessee Titans are entering a rebuild, and this year should answer the question on whether or not Will Levis is a part of the future. He has a better receiving core this year, but no Derrick Henry. I have the Titans finishing 6-11 and last place in the division because I'm just not that high on Will Levis anymore. The Colts have a very high ceiling, but in my opinion, a very low floor coming into 2024. They're due for an improvement if everyone can stay healthy, but that's a big question mark for them. And even if they do stay healthy, they're probably still the third best team in this division. And with that being said, I have them finishing in 8-9. But we're done with the AFC South, and here are my rankings. And we'll see later on in this video if the Jaguars can clinch a playoff spot. Okay, now we are moving on to the final division in the AFC, which is of course the AFC North. The success of the Cleveland Browns really lies on the shoulders of this guy, and I don't think that's a good thing. I'm not betting on Deshaun Watson or the Browns after last year. The Browns have the capability to win games, but with a difficult schedule, I just don't see that much potential in them. I have them finishing 7-10. The Pittsburgh Steelers announced Russell Wilson as the starting quarterback. This season has a lot of unknowns for the Steelers. Based on what I know, they're a difficult division with arguably the worst team on paper in the division. The team is talented though, so I have them at 8-9, third place in the division. We'll have to see if they can steal wins against the Ravens or Bengals to potentially move up in the rankings. But this is where it really gets interesting. First of all, I have the Bengals finishing 12-5. Losing Joe Mixon might hurt a little bit, but they should be fine. They have a lot of playmakers, and barring a healthy season from their stars, they should have a shot at winning this division. The Baltimore Ravens, on the other hand, made some good moves in the offseason, and they should be competitive in this division as well. I have the Ravens at 12-5, tying them with the Bengals, but I think the tiebreaker will go to Cincinnati because I think their conference schedule is slightly easier. I have them going 1-1 in their head-to-head matchups, so it's going to be really close between the two teams, and it's going to end up coming down to conference record. But that's the AFC. What a talented conference. As of right now, we have 6 of our 7 playoff spots filled, with the Ravens and Jets as the first 2 wildcard teams. The last spot for me is between the Dolphins and the Jaguars. I think that this spot will end up going to the Miami Dolphins. These two teams actually go head-to-head in Week 1, and I have the Dolphins winning that game and therefore sneaking into the playoffs as the 7th seed. But now that that's settled, this is my AFC end-of-season standings, and it kind of looks similar to last year's standings, but I can assure you that the NFC will look a lot different. Why don't we get things started in the NFC with the single worst division in the NFL, the NFC South. I've honestly changed my mind on this division since my ranking NFL teams video. I have the Atlanta Falcons winning this race of mediocrity. They have a talented young team with a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and I have this team finishing 10-7. Originally, the team that I had winning this division was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last year, I had the Buccaneers finishing 5-12, which was one of my worst predictions of the year. But instead of changing my mind on this team, I'm going to put myself in jeopardy to make the same mistake again. I have the Buccaneers finishing 8-9, which once again is a big change from my video ranking NFL teams where I had them as division winners. I don't really know what has changed for me, but it just feels like I undervalued some of the Falcons' young skill position players and overrated the Bucs' older team. I might be undervaluing this team for the second year in a row, but let me know if you disagree in the comment section. But moving on, I got the New Orleans Saints finishing 3rd in this division. Derek Carr isn't going to get any better at this point, and I think this team is stuck in a weird spot this year because they're not bad enough to have a high-end draft pick, but they're also not good enough to compete for a Super Bowl or anything close to that. So that being said, I have the New Orleans Saints finishing at 7-10. Finally, we have the Carolina Panthers, who I have finishing last in the division. Last year, I predicted this team to win the division, which I was very wrong about. I think Bryce Young is due for a much better year with a slightly better team, but I still don't see them doing anything crazy. I also have them finishing at 7-10. To be honest, the NFC South doesn't have that many great storylines going for it, so let's move on to a more interesting division, the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals are another one of those teams that's stuck in no man's land. Once again, they aren't bad enough to get a top 5 pick, but aren't good enough to compete this year. Marvin Harrison Jr. should be a great addition. So I have the Cardinals finishing 8-9 with some young talent, but also just not enough pieces to completely put it together this year. The rest of this division looks really promising. In my opinion, all three of these teams have a good chance to win the division. I think people are sleeping on the Rams, who will hopefully have a fully healthy team this year. The 49ers still look great, and it'll be interesting to see if they can replicate the same success as last year. The Seahawks haven't improved that much, but the team should still be decent. I was just saying that these three teams will all have a chance at winning the division, but I still think the 49ers are the clear favorite. Here are my record predictions for each team. I got the 49ers on top of the division at 12-5, the Rams close behind at 10-6, and the Seahawks dropping off slightly at 8-9. Let's now move on to the NFC North. This division is one of the most interesting divisions in the NFL, with four of the most interesting teams in the NFL. Two teams that are playoff bound, a team that could be a playoff dark horse, and the Vikings, who are in a weird spot this year. The Vikings are going to be rolling out with Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback. Unfortunately, this alone puts a lower ceiling on what this team can accomplish, even with the amount of great players they have. I have the Vikings finishing 7-10 and last place in the division. Just ahead of them, I have the Chicago Bears. If Caleb Williams can perform at an elite level, this team should be competitive in this division. I have them finishing 9-8 in this difficult division, but with the top two spots, I got the Packers in second at 10-7 and the Lions in first at 11-6. These teams have two of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and I think the Lions will win this division as their team overall is just more complete. With a 10-7 record, however, this means that the Packers will clinch a playoff berth as a wildcard team. But here we are, moving on to the final division in the NFL. The NFC East has been in a similar spot for the past few years. Starting at the top with the Eagles and Cowboys, these two teams have a lot of elite talent and are poised for a good regular season again. I got them tying at 11-6, but the Eagles will have the tiebreaker as the division winners, and the Cowboys will be the first wildcard team in the playoffs. The Giants are far and away at the bottom of this division, as there's just not really much to talk about with this team. They have Malik Neighbors, of course, but how much does that really matter if Daniel Jones is going to be the one throwing him the ball? I have them finishing at 5-12. The one thing about this division that has changed for me this year is the Commanders with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. This team has the potential to break out this year, but in a division with two of the best regular season teams over the past few years, I think it'll be difficult for them to break through and put it all together. I have the Commanders finishing 8-9, third place in the division. But those are my record predictions for every team in the NFL. Now let's go ahead and look at these conferences. The AFC looks pretty similar to how it was last year. I think the Broncos and Browns have potential to surprise some people, but I had to be realistic and go with teams that are already proven to make the playoffs. I remember saying that last year the AFC had much more talent than the NFC, and this might still be true, but the NFC has really caught up. But nonetheless, both conferences are stacked this year, and overall, there's just a lot of talent in the NFL. If you guys want to see a video going over my preseason award predictions and playoff predictions, let me know in the comment section below, but that'll have to be a topic for a separate video. But today, I will give you my preseason Super Bowl pick. My preseason Super Bowl pick is going to be the Houston Texans. You can make an argument that the Texans are still a year away, but I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun on them. They're a very talented young team that just added a few more really good veterans to the team. You could also make an argument for the Bengals, Bills, or Ravens defeating the Chiefs, but this young Texans team, if healthy, could deliver this organization's first ever Super Bowl. But that's it for this video. We went through all 32 teams in this video and went over my Super Bowl prediction. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Once again, if you disagree with anything that I said in this video, let me know in the comment section below. I'll be responding to all the comments down there. But that's it for me, and I'll see you all in the next one.